NFL sideline broadcaster Michelle Tafoya is now running for Senate in Minnesota as a Republican. And she said the reason she's a great candidate is that she used to interview coaches for a living.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways. Half court, full court, running gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
When did we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology? We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
The Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League are now official partners with Kalshi. It takes effect this week. Each side can use the other's intellectual property for co-marketing purposes, and Kalshi will be promoted during home games at the United Center and on Blackhawks broadcasts. First of its kind, certainly probably not the last as well.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Arvel Reese at 8%. I got to tell you right now, I have no idea who that is or if they're playing a Joe Bowman show.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting
Who is that?
here, but I have no idea.
You even know?
But no idea. But don't you have to pick the Heisman winner, Don? Isn't that like the rule of thumb if you're going to take a quarterback? Is he not the best quarterback?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Game Time Decisions right here on SportsGrid. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'm stepping in for Kevin Walsh. And of course, it's going to be business as usual. There's plenty to get to not only tonight, but looking forward to this weekend as we have 2 NFL championship games. We'll touch on all of that. As for tonight, a lot going on, and we have action in the NBA, the NHL, college basketball. I will note right from the top that due to this impending winter storm, we've already seen some college basketball games, their schedules being shifted. I would not be surprised to see that happen across both the NBA and the NHL in the coming days. So if you're betting on those, make sure that you do know what's at stake, that these games could be postponed or whatnot. But let's get to this 8-game NBA slate tonight. A lot of action going down across the league. Of course, I have one bet that we'll specifically get to. We'll have Mark Zinno on later to give his thoughts on some of the action on tonight's slate. We will see Durant and Embiid going head-to-head. That's really the highlight of tonight's slate, at least in my opinion, with the Splash Brothers, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry going head-to-head in their little revenge. And then we have the Lakers taking on the Clippers, which is always exciting. That's really for the NBA. As for the NHL, we have another 8-game slate, and we are winding down to the final few weeks before we get the Olympic break for NHL players. We have great action on tonight's slate. We see some heavy money lines tonight when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes at home, -300 for them. Edmonton at home as well, pushing towards -200 for that. So plenty of action we'll get to. George Kurtz will be on a little bit later to talk some NHL along with NFL. But let's really get into the NFL news for today. And it's really not just today, but what we've seen over the past few days and the past few weeks. And that comes to the coaching cycle and the coaching hirings really across the league. This is just from less than an hour ago from Adam Schefter. The Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens, have found their new head coach. Jesse Minter, who was previously with the team up until 2020, he is now returning after his time with the Chargers, and they've hired him as the new head coach. This is not only the only coaching vacancy that we have seen filled over the past few days and really over the past week. Notably, we've seen Coach Robert Saleh sign with the Titans. That is also a 5-year deal. So 5 teams have their head coaches, and then we have 5 teams without head coaches. And these teams have varying degrees of allure when it comes to what we could be getting or who is interested in those. Obviously, there's all these tweets and reports about coaches getting their second interviews, in-person interviews with them. We know for the Raiders, they have the top overall pick. Mendoza is likely going number 1, at least at this point in time. So a coach stepping in, potentially getting the number 1 pick and getting a franchise quarterback with the pieces that they have on offense with Bowers and Genti is very interesting. They have a lot of work to do when it comes to the offensive line and the defense, led by Max Crosby. That is at least an enticing landing spot for a head coach now. We also turn to the Buffalo Bills, who obviously are a great team. They are, not getting over the hump as of now, but they still have the pieces together to make them a consistent playoff team. And the tweaking that a new head coach could bring in, along with a new OC or DC, and then some pieces throughout free agency and the draft, that's something that could push them over the top. So Daboll's name, Brian Daboll, the former coach of the Giants, his name has been brought up as the potential head coach for the Buffalo Bills. And that is something that we'll be paying attention to because, frankly, if we have this list again of the NFL teams with at least current openings right now, the Buffalo Bills are clearly in a spot to be the most consistent contender and the quote-unquote win now mode. We know the Cardinals have plenty of work to do. We know the Browns have plenty of work to do along with the Raiders. The Steelers are in a bit of a weird spot. There have been some reports that Rodgers may not want to come back. He liked the idea of playing for Mike Tomlin. We know that Mike Tomlin is not going to be there. So not only do they have to replace a head coach, you now have to potentially replace a quarterback if he doesn't want to be there with the new head coach that they bring in. So 3 of those teams have plenty of work to do. Looking at the Bills, they certainly are the most enticing landing spot for a team and a coach that's ready to win now. Not only NFL news, we've also had a flurry of MLB news over the past few days, and we're seemingly getting some of these late night, at least not today, but today's news is that Mackenzie Gore, the left-hander from the Washington Nationals, has been traded from them to the Texas Rangers, and they get a package of young players in return. And this really bolsters the Rangers pitching staff, which is certainly on the up and up right now. You give me a pitching staff of Jacob deGrom, Mackenzie Gore, Nate Eovaldi, potentially Kumar Rocker. That is looking like a good staff overall. And I certainly have some interest in the Rangers of where they sit in the AL West. So we got that news. We also got news last night that the Mets traded for Freddie Peralta from the Milwaukee Brewers. They send back a package of a couple young players. Obviously, Peralta coming off a fantastic season, and the Mets were a little bit quiet in free agency to start the MLB offseason. They made some moves recently. They signed Bo Bichette. They trade for Luis Robert, and now they make another trade for Freddie Peralta, really giving them some frontline starting, which they desperately needed. And all of this has impacted the World Series odds for all of these teams across the league. And then, of course, just a couple days ago, we saw the Yankees re-sign Cody Bellinger to a 5-year deal, tying him there for at least the next half decade, minus the opt-outs and what have you. But the World Series odds, as we see there, are pretty dramatic. And this is where they're going to be all season, whether it's, January 22nd, February 22nd, May 22nd. This is roughly where they'll be all season long. The Dodgers, the clear favorite, they're at plus 220, which is a ridiculous number, knowing if you are betting that, you are locking that up for legitimately 9 months, which I do not recommend in any capacity. It is a horrible price. And the books, as we know, only put it there because they don't want it to be a liability. They want to discourage you from betting the Dodgers at plus 220. You're never going to get a plus 12 to 1, 13 to 1 number on the Dodgers at any point this season, even if they start off slow. Now, the next grouping of teams are going to be juggling around that range throughout the entire season. Whether it's the Braves jumping ahead, the Jays jumping ahead, the Phillies get off to a hot start, the Cubs, what have you. this is going to be the grouping of teams that we largely see. Now, can we have a team that's a little bit further down, perhaps like the Rangers, get off to a hot start, and then their number jumps up into that top category, that top grouping? Absolutely. But when it comes to MLB, that's where we're going to see the numbers all season long. It's going to be the Dodgers and then everyone else, and you kind of have to pick your team that you want and look from there. So plenty going on across the MLB. There's still plenty of free agents out there that teams will be looking to sign, as we're less than a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting. And then before you know it, we'll be in spring training. And then we, of course, have the World Baseball Classic. But for more pressing news and notes, we will, of course, be turning to plenty of coverage for the NFC and AFC championship games as we take a look at the NFL playoff picture overall. We are down to the Final Four. And it starts off on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern with the Denver Broncos at home, now 4.5-point home underdogs hosting the New England Patriots. This line was 5.5. Now it's down to 4.5. We did see this total open up at 40.5. Up to 41.5. It's now actually live sitting at 42.5. And of course, we know that Jarrett Stidham will be starting at quarterback for the Denver Broncos. We will be talking about that plenty, not only on this show, but the days leading up until Sunday. And then we turn things over to the NFC to find the other side of the Super Bowl matchup. That will be the Seattle Seahawks, the number 1 seed at home. Now, 2.5-point favorites hosting the Los Angeles Rams. We're down to a 46.5 total. Teams that know each other intimately well based on their conference, or I should say their division rivalry. There's plenty of going on. We'll have plenty of guests on throughout the show. We have 3 coming up, and we will discuss all this right here. Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid. Stay tuned.
Percent chance of winning a PGA Tour major. Would I be wrong by saying I want to invest in the no on Scotty Scheffler? And that $100 investment would pay back $213 here. Everybody thinks Scotty's going to win. It's like 100 golfers in those fields each and every week, and the majors, the best golfers in the world. I'm going against the grain, Joe. Give me the no on Scotty Scheffler.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
I'll tell you what, guys. The insider scam is like the best insider scam in the business of, like, in the history of television. They don't know anything until their phone gets the text message in which the deal is done, right? We saw this with Quinn Hughes. We were told, he wants to play with his brothers. He wants to play with his brothers. Now they're saying that he wanted to be traded to Detroit. In other words, just say you don't know.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis is shopping John Morant. Yeah, no kidding. They should have shopped him 2 years ago and got rid of him. The problem is, where does he go? Like, what team is going to sit there and deal with a dude who, A, has not been healthy or reliable both on the court or off the court? Like, who's trading for John Morant here, Coach?
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Buy or sell. Tua has made his last start for the Dolphins. Feels like Sam went easy on this one.
If I could be that crazy guy, was it Jim Cramer? Buy. Yeah, there's no way he's playing for the Dolphins again. After he said that statement, there was no way in hell anyway. But once again, new coach, new GM. I don't know how they're going to do the cap hit. It's massive.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
What's going on? Welcome back to Game Time Decisions right here on SportsGrid. My name is Tom Vecchio. We have plenty to get to across tonight's sports landscape. Let's jump into the NBA. We have an 8-game slate. And let's start off with my favorite bet of the night, and that's going to be turning to the Denver Nuggets taking on the Washington Wizards. And let's turn to Peyton Watson of the Denver Nuggets, over 26.5 points plus rebounds and assists combined. That's sitting at minus 122, minus 126 there about, right from the jump. Washington, second worst defensive efficiency in the NBA. This is a great spot. Now, when we look at the Denver Nuggets specifically, and I generally like to isolate the sample size that gives us the most accurate result, and that would be the Denver Nuggets without Jokic, also without Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson's been out for a month at this point. So if we isolate that sample size, Peyton Watson has a 4.4% increase in offensive usage, which is fantastic. So that's the underlying stuff. When we look at some of his box score numbers, right from the jump, my favorite thing to see is a high volume of minutes each and every night. Since the beginning of January, there have only been 2 games where he's fallen below 30 minutes. He was at 28 and 29 minutes. One of those games against Brooklyn back on January 4th. He got in a little bit of foul trouble. He had 4 fouls in that game, still finished with 29 minutes. This past weekend against Charlotte, bit of a blowout. Nuggets lost. He did not play the entirety of the fourth quarter. He still ended with 29 minutes. So every single night, he's in the mid to upper 30s, which is fantastic. He's averaging in the mid to upper teens when it comes to field goal attempts per game, which is always good. He's not taking a whole lot of threes, 4, 5, 6 per game. He's not a super high volume 3-point shooter. He is hitting them at over 40%. So there's some nice scoring upside. Since the beginning of January, he's also averaging a total of 9 rebounds and assists combined, 6 and 3 to be specific. So when we have a player that plays a consistent amount of minutes, has good usage in the current rotation for the Nuggets with Jokic and Cam Johnson out, he's one of their trusted scorers. I did consider a little bit of Aaron Gordon tonight. I couldn't get there. The field goal attempts have been a little bit up and down for him as of late. We also are looking at the Nuggets in a spot where they kind of need to right the ship after a couple of losses. So you give me a player who's going to play 35, 36, 38 minutes tonight, going to take 15, 16, 18 field goal attempts. A few of them from will be downtown. He's contributing in the peripheral stats, and he's going up against the Washington team, who is the second worst in terms of defensive efficiency. I will take that night in and night out. So Denver, Washington may not be the marquee game on tonight's slate, but finding some good value with Peyton Watson, the fourth-year player who has really been solid for Denver this season when it's all said and done. And frankly, I think he's going to be a phenomenal rotation piece for them come the playoffs when they are fully healthy. You add him alongside Gordon, Cam Johnson, Murray, and Jokic, of course. You have a really solid core that can give you heavy minutes night in and night out. Next up, Philly and Houston. This is probably one of the premier games on tonight's slate. Durant and the Rockets visiting Embiid and the 76ers. That will be a game that plenty of people are drawn to, but also looking at Golden State and Dallas. And I have seen some, promos out there for the Splash Brothers, going up against each other, Curry versus Klay Thompson. That should really be one of the other marquee games on tonight's slate and one of the games that a lot of people are going to be focusing in on. So we have some early action. We have some, mid action in terms of the 7 o'clock window. This is Rockets, 76ers. Then we turn to Warriors taking on the Mavericks, which is certainly solid. Heavy money line in terms of the Warriors, which I can certainly not get behind at this point. Looking to back Dallas at home. And then for some late night action, a little crosstown rivalry now it is with the new court and new arena for the Clippers, but the Lakers taking on the Clippers. This game really should be a pick'em at this point, and that's what we should be getting. Plenty of scoring is what I'm expecting in this one. Plenty of scoring. We are just a couple weeks away from the NBA trade deadline, and I know there's going to be movements of plenty of players. Anthony Davis's name has constantly been brought up across the league in terms of that. There were some reports earlier today that the Bulls are not going to be looking to move Vucevic, which I think is a mistake. They should absolutely be looking to move him and be getting as many pieces back as they possibly can. There's been reports about John Morant potentially being traded. Then there's a report from John Morant saying that he does not want to be traded. So, of course, leading up to the trade deadline with what the Grizzlies are going to do and which team may or may not be interested in John Morant, that is going to help shape the rest of the NBA season. And frankly, I always like to look at the odds for NBA teams right now prior to the deadline, of course, as we all do, but teams that are in the mix to potentially trade for players. Just because the Hawks have been linked to Anthony Davis. Does not mean we want to be automatically looking towards the Hawks. We want to be looking at teams that could potentially take on Anthony Davis's contract and look to potentially bet them before the move happens. I'm not saying you can be this a blind rule where we just randomly bet a bunch of teams, but know the teams that are potentially looking to add players and where their odds are to start. There also have been some reports about LeBron James. There are reports in recent days about the dynamic between him and the front office of the Lakers. Obviously, this has not been a new topic, but the reality of him being moved is certainly there for the Lakers and what is best for their franchise moving forward. So a whole slew of moves that could be happening across the NBA in the final 2 weeks leading up to the NBA trade deadline. I will say, this is also a great time to start looking to buy low on players. And what I mean by that is players that play a minimal or bench role right now could be in for a large increase once players are traded away from their current team. So the guy who is 8th or 9th in the rotation across a team right now could be moved up to 6th or 7th and be that first or second player off the bench. And seeing their PRA that are 18.5, 19.5 now, in 3 or 4 weeks or a month's time from now, those numbers could be up at 25 or 26 simply because of an increase in role and an increase of raw minutes. So a very exciting and important time across the NBA as we approach the trade deadline. Again, 8 games on tonight's slate. Looking to Peyton Watson over 26.5 PRA as my favorite NBA bet on tonight's slate. We're coming up against a break right now. We'll touch on tonight's NHL slate, and then we'll have George Kurtz on to give his thoughts also on tonight's NHL slate, and then along with the NFL action coming up this weekend. Stay tuned right here on the
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NCAA always has a complicated relationship with sports betting. It's, of course, they were the title litigants in the fall of the federal ban. They were trying to stop New Jersey from offering it. They just don't like sports betting, right? I think they understand that people bet on their games and it probably drives engagement, but at the end of the day, they see this as a threat. We know all the scandals that have happened around college sports.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not either.
That's fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. There's
more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
GameTime Decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. And say, well, why? Wait a second here. Who's head coach of the New York Giants? Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clint Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here on SportsGrid, Game Time Decisions. My name is Tom Vecchio, stepping in for Kevin Walsh. We just went through a little bit of tonight's 8-game NBA slate. Let's turn over to tonight's 8-game NHL slate. And let's start off with my favorite bet on the slate, which would be the Montreal Canadiens at home hosting the Buffalo Sabres. Over 6.5 game total in this one. As you can see, this is a bit of a toss-up when it comes to the money line on both sides, but we are seeing plenty of scoring from both teams, specifically the Habs. They are putting it in, but also the Canadiens, they're giving up a ton of goals. And Buffalo, this is their third game in 4 nights, a little bit of a road trip for them coming to an end. So some tired legs for the Sabres. The Habs have been absolutely electric at home, a team that you can always look to back. They're coming off a nice win the other night against the Wild. I think the Habs continue to roll at home. I don't love their money line tonight just because the Sabres are certainly trending in the right direction after a very slow start to the season, but I like goals first and foremost in this game. Turning to the rest of the slate, we turn to a very close game between Dallas and Columbus. Columbus has some recent juice with their coaching change. We often see that, a little bit of a bump to their performance after the firing and hiring of an old coach to a new coach. That is certainly very exciting. The game that sticks out tonight the most would be the Hurricanes at home, minus 285. Hosting the Chicago Blackhawks. This game is basically unbettable when it's all said and done. Oftentimes, I like to look towards a team's 60-minute money line, which means the team has to win in regulation. But even that for the Canes is sitting at minus 180, minus 190. That is still largely unbettable. I will say I have already looked ahead to tomorrow's slate, knowing that Tampa is at Chicago, and Chicago is playing on a back-to-back. They have to go from Carolina, playing a good team in Carolina, then travel back home and play a great team in Tampa tomorrow. So be looking to back Tampa potentially in some capacity. But we have another game on tonight's slate, which should be very exciting. A pure coin flip game when it comes to Dallas visiting the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's minus 110 on both sides. 6.5 over under. We've seen, really solid scoring from both teams for the majority of the season. Again, Columbus just made a coaching change last week. That game should be a bit of a toss-up. Another interesting game tonight, which leads into tomorrow's slate as well, would be the Vegas Golden Knights visiting the Boston Bruins. And Mitch Marner is making his return to Toronto Maple Leafs to play the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow. But I am still interested in this game, seeing Vegas as such a heavy road favorite. Has me a little bit interested in the Bruins. Might be a little bit of a look-ahead spot for Vegas, knowing that they have to go to the Maple Leafs tomorrow. And obviously, it's just one player returning to the Maple Leafs with Mitch Marner. But those sorts of things can certainly hang over a team knowing that they are on a long road trip away from home. And there's a very big storyline involving one of their star players. Next up, we have the Predators at home. They are minus 102 hosting the Ottawa Senators. I have to say, it would be all Senators in this matchup for me, not looking to back the Preds in any capacity. I'm not saying the Senators are a good team. It's just, I think, far better of them versus the Predators, who I do not think are a good team in any capacity. As we whip around for the rest of the games, the Jets are at home taking on the Florida Panthers. The Panthers got Matthew Tkachuk back just a couple of days ago. The Jets are not a good team. Florida has been a bit up and down, but I'll certainly look to back Florida more often than not compared to the Winnipeg Jets, who were on a horrible 11-game losing streak, have kind of, eased things since then, but are still not a team worth backing in this capacity. And then Edmonton at home. This is really one of the highlight games on tonight's slate. Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins visiting Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers coming off a tough loss the other night going up against the New Jersey Devils when they lost 2-1. I would certainly look to back Edmonton in this capacity. And this would be the spot that I would either back an Edmonton team total or look to back Edmonton on the three-way money line. So their normal money line is minus 178, minus 180. Their three-way money line is sitting at minus 105, which are significantly better odds compared to minus 178. Now, of course, they have to win in regulation, but an Edmonton team total or Edmonton to win in regulation, those would be the first two spots I will look. We're having George Kurtz come on in just a little bit. He will give his thoughts on tonight's NHL slate. We will also preview the NFL games coming up this weekend, as there's plenty of action and plenty of storylines to get into for that. George Kurtz then, right after 7 o'clock, we'll have Mark Zinno on, and then at 7:30, we'll have Brady Cannon on, covering everything from NHL, NFL, NBA, and golf. You name it. Stay tuned right now. SportsGrid will be back.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NCAA always has a complicated relationship with sports betting. It's, of course, they were the title litigant in the fall of the federal ban. They were trying to stop New Jersey from offering it. They just don't like sports betting, right? I think they understand that people bet on their games and it probably drives engagement, but at the end of the day, they see this as a threat. We know all the scandals that have happened around college sports.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. There's
more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
GameTime Decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. I say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here, Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid. My name is Tom Vecchio, and now let's welcome on our first guest of the show, a man you see all across the SportsGrid network. That would be George Kurtz. We have plenty to get to, and this is a great opportunity to touch on multiple different sports. But George, let's get into tonight's NHL slate. You know, I know you like to find the two-team money line parlays. I'm assuming the Carolina Hurricanes have to be in the mix for you. It's just really finding a dance partner for them. I think the Oilers make sense as that other team, but where are you looking tonight?
All right, well, I bet it on the Oilers the other night, right? They lost to the Devils, I believe it was, right? So, yeah, that wasn't kind to me. Now you're right. If you're going to go for the parlay here, they do call me Professor Parlay, Parlay here. Carolina's an obvious one against the Blackhawks, right? We're not going to lay 3-1, taking them on the money line at -285. So we have to find a partner. You could go the goal line if you want. Just play it single up -112. Don't hate that, and see if they can win by 2 goals. I kind of like Vegas overboard, so not enough in a parlay. How about the Stars? If you don't want to go Everton, or maybe I want to do an early parlay. This way, if I lose, I can try and make up for it with late games. How about the Dallas Stars over the Columbus Blue Jackets? I'm the first person to admit Stars haven't been playing all that well of late here, but still, -110 against the Jackets. That line stinks. It just stinks to me. All right, I don't know why it's so low here. And this is a weird night in the NHL, Tom. Not sure if you checked, but it was just nicknamed Backup Goalie Night. There's like a half dozen backup goalies going tonight, and about another 4 to 5 that are technically starters for their teams, but they're really backups too. So those teams don't have a true starter tonight. So my early parlay is going to be the Hurricanes you mentioned. I'm going to go with the Stars as well.
Okay. I was talking before in this previous segment about the Habs and the Sabres over 6.5 as my favorite bet for tonight. I will also want to throw this out there. If you've looked at tomorrow's slate, we have the return of Mitch Marner to the Maple Leafs. That is his. So I was kind of interested in Boston tonight, but if you take a look at tomorrow's slate, the Blackhawks are playing at home versus Tampa. The Blackhawks will be on a back-to-back against Tampa, which is very interesting. And then we will see Mitch Marner return to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Any interest in games that I can't really pin down? Florida versus the Winnipeg Jets or the Senators versus the Preds. I would lean Sens and I would lean Florida Panthers, but I don't love either of those games.
Well, Florida's not going with Bobrovsky tonight. All right, they're going with Tarasenko. Right. They're going with the backup goaltender. They're one of those teams that just believes in backup goalie night tonight, for whatever it means. It makes me want to take the Jets, who have not played well all season long here. All right, they've been a sort of a conundrum here. You got Hellebuck, you got Scheifele, you got Kyle Connor. Very good. They've had very good years, Scheifele and Connor, but you're not winning games. You know, what's the deal there? My problem with this is that it's hard to trust the Jets. You know, it's like I said, they've been that weird team for me. But that being said, you got the backup goaltender. Florida has some issues of their own, right? They have some injuries. Seth Jones on long-term IR. Barkov, we know, has been out the entire season. I'm a little disappointed that Winnipeg is still the favorite here. I really would have liked Florida to be the other way around. I mean, it's pretty much even. You're playing minus 113. I'm going to go with Peg. Once again, I'll take them as the Hellebuck comes up big tonight. But I don't. It's a pizza money bet. Nothing that I feel great about. Certainly nothing I'm putting in a parlay because I certainly far from guaranteeing a win here for the Jets.
Now, if we flip over to this weekend's NFL action, the two championship games, we've seen a little bit of line movement in both of these games. The Pats were at 5.5; they're down to 4.5. We've seen the total creep up just a little bit. Total creep down when it comes to Rams, Seahawks. Initial thoughts when it comes to Stidham and the Broncos at home catching points. What are your expectations for that game, at least offensively, from Denver?
Not much. All right. I mean, come on. He's a backup for a reason. They're going to say all the right things. All right. What do they play? Oh, he's been better in the practice squad quarterback than our starting quarterback is. Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. And Sean Payton's going to play him up. Sean Payton is great with quarterbacks. He'll have a package of plays that are designed for Stidham. But in the long run here, you know, I think it's going to be a very boring game. And what I mean by that is I think New England knows if we don't turn the ball over, Drake May, all right, he's had 6 turnovers in the first 2 games. If we don't turn the ball over, we win the game. All right, then we're going to score enough points to get it done. Our defense may not be Denver's, but it's good. You know, so I think they know that. I think it's going to be a boring game here. I think it's a game that at that half, Tom, might be close, you know, 13-10, you know, 10-7, something like that. But as we go along here, New England's defense is going to take over, sort of like what we saw in New England and Houston, right? As the game went along, all the mistakes that Houston made, they just couldn't come back from. New England was taking advantage of it. I expect the same thing here. So I think New England wins the game. The spread started at 4.5 immediately after the games last week. Then it went to 5.5 because when we heard about Bo Nix, that was down to 4.5 again. I'm a little surprised by that. I thought it would keep climbing up here. I like the Patriots a lot. I've said this on every show we've had this week. I'm on the Patriots. I'll take on the money line. I have them in many parlays, whether it's a hot games on Saturday or hot games on Sunday, or hot games on Monday. I'm going to have them all across the board in parlays here. If the Patriots lose on Sunday, you may find me in the witness protection programs. I am not going to be happy.
All right. I will say, if we can play a little bit of a hypothetical, what would be the path to Denver winning this game, though? Is it just turnovers and defense, and they win this game 17-14?
I think you said it. The Denver defense is good. They can get to Drake May, right? They had 71 sacks this season. They will get to Drake May here. If May is throwing interceptions or if he's fumbling the football and you give Stidham short field, sure, they could do that. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. You know, I think, once again, if Bo Nix was there, I would probably think that Denver Broncos would win the game. At home, their defense is better than yours. Their offense is probably about even here. The other thing is you used to be able to run on New England. All right, then they got healthy, and now you haven't been able to run on them. But they're going to try and keep, once again, they're going to want to keep Stidham in 2nd and 5, right? 2nd and 6, not 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, where it's obvious passing situation. Here we come. You know, I can also see this. New England's going to want to blitz them, right? We always blitz rookie quarterbacks or a young quarterback or quarterbacks who haven't played. If Denver can pick up those blitzes, and then all of a sudden you get the one-on-ones, and he breaks it, that could be a difference as well here. But I think as long as New England doesn't turn the football over or doesn't take 17 penalties, I think they win the game.
Now, if we turn over to the NFC, the second game, Seattle at home, laying 2.5 at this point. Total is now 46.5. Two teams that know each other very well. Expectations for this, considering Sam Darnold, the oblique, is he fully healthy? Are they just going to lean on Ken Walker as they did last weekend? What are we going to see from the Rams on offense? Because it's been a little bit shaky over the past 2 weeks.
It has, right? Stafford hasn't played all that great. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been MVP, right? Even somewhere in between. I guess he came up big when they needed him to. But we all know that Seattle defense is very good as well, right? That's not a joke. It may not be Houston's defense, or it may not be the Denver defense, but it's good. It's right there with them, not that far behind here. I think what you're going to see from Seattle is pretty simple. I'm going to assume the oblique injury to Donald obviously wasn't major, but it is something, right? But I think they would have protected him anyway, right? I think, Tom, they're worried about the interceptions as well. All right, so I think they would have protected him either way. Kenneth Walker's going to get a big run here. He's hot. He's playing well. Like I said, I think his yardage total, his attempts total, I expect him to get over all of that, unless all of a sudden Stafford's throwing the ball up and down the field and they're scoring points here, which I don't expect. But if he's doing that, that was going to take you out of that game plan. Now you have to rely on Donald. But I don't think they want to make Donald the centerpiece here. I think they want to make the run game and defense the centerpiece of this game. That's why I'm not big on the over. I haven't taken the under yet. So I'm not saying that. But I don't think this is going to be like the shootout game was a 39-33 early in the season. I don't expect that at all. You know, I think it's going to be more of a normal football game, closer. But I lean towards the under here because I don't think Seattle wants to make Donald throw the ball 35, 40 times. I think if they're forced to do that, it means their defense did not come up big. And Stafford has been able to move the football with Nakua, with Devontae Adams. But I don't expect that to happen here.
Now, have you taken a look, or do you have any futures on Super Bowl MVPs? You know, myself, I like to bet these before the Super Bowl rolls around, just because we're getting longer odds. Do you have any action on Super Bowl MVPs or Super Bowl touchdowns at this point?
I have opinions, but living in New York, I'm not allowed to bet on this. Not legally,
the MVPs.
Right. Yeah, we can't vote on any singular awards yet. That being said, I don't think it matters who goes from the NFC, LA or Seattle. I expect them to win the Super Bowl. So I think if you go in that direction, you want to pick a player from that team. Obviously, we go with the quarterback. If it's the Rams, it'll be Stafford. Seattle, a little tougher here because I don't think it would be Darnold if they won here. I don't.
Well, that's George Kurtz, his NFL thoughts, his NHL thoughts. We'll be right back on SportsGrid. Stay tuned.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there.
Yeah.
To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NCAA always has a complicated relationship with sports betting. It's, of course, they were the title litigants in the fall of the federal ban. They were trying to stop New Jersey from offering it. They just don't like sports betting, right? I think they understand that people bet on their games and it probably drives engagement, but at the end of the day, they see this as a threat. We know all the scandals that have happened around college sports.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
fine that you believe that. But here's the thing.
There's more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
Game Time Decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. I say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here on Sports Grid. It's Game Time Decisions. Tom Vecchio stepping in for Kevin Walsh. We're keeping George Kurtz around for one more segment, and we're going to turn to some MLB news and notes of the past few days. We have seen trades, we've seen signings, and wanting to get George's thoughts on some of these recent moves. So notably, the Mets trading for Freddie Peralta, they trade for Luis Robert, they signed Bo Bichette. Takeaways from what the Mets have done now after what was a pretty quiet offseason for them.
Well, they lied to us, right? David Stearns flat out lied to the Met fans, right? They got rid of Alonso, they got rid of Nemo because of defensive problems, right? And then you say, oh, Blanco's going to play first base. Guy's never played first base. You signed Bichette, which in a vacuum or in a fantasy league, love, right? Hey, good hitter there. But you're going to move him to third base when he couldn't play shortstop. All right, teams didn't want him to play shortstop because he's not good defensively there. You have the worst right fielder, defensive right fielder in baseball in Soto. Lindor took a big step back last year on at shortstop. So what I mean is, I don't trust Stearns one way or the other. That being said, I do like the moves. Bichette, he's probably not going to hit as many home runs as he would in Toronto. Toronto's a bandbox. Shea Stadium. Citi Field is not. So I might temper down those expectations there, but still, it's going to be a good lineup. He'll do damage here. I like the trade that Mets made. All right, I was talking with a Mets fan, a Mets friend of mine who big Mets fan, and he didn't like the trade. He hates trading prospects. But you trade Jet Williams, who I think a good trade for the Brewers as well. But Jet Williams is my size, about 5'7". All right, tough for me to see him being a superstar. There are only so many Dustin Pedroias and Jose Altuves of the world out there in Major League Baseball. All right, and he trades Sproat once again. Number 3, number 4 starter. I'm okay with that. I understand you only have Peralta for 1 year. But if he likes it here and Cohen wants him, he'll be a Met. Right? Not like the Mets can't afford to sign him if they don't want him here. And it makes you a good team again, right? Peralta may not be Skeens. He may not be Skubal or Crochet, but he's a good starter, right? You compare him with McLean, assuming he's the real deal, certainly look like it. And then you have a lot of depth there, Peterson, Sanger, and such. Gives the Mets a really good rotation, good offense here. Defense may scare me a bit, but you can't have everything in life. But one thing that I do agree with that, I talked to that friend of mine, you still may be the third best team in your division. I mean, Atlanta's stacked, Philadelphia's stacked, but the National League East probably, outside of maybe the American League East, might be the best division in baseball. Should be a lot of fun here. I like the trade. Bottom line is I like what the Mets have done. Took them a little while here, but I like what they've done here. I think they've made themselves at least as good a team as they were last year. I know they didn't make the playoffs and they choked at the end here, but I think that might have been let's see whatever the clubhouse problems were here. I like the move of Peralta, Bichette. Robert's a good upside guy. We'll see what he can do.
Now, another trade that happened earlier today would be Mackenzie Gore going from the Nationals to the Rangers for a package of young players. Frankly, I think this makes the Rangers and their pitching staff one of the better ones in baseball, knowing that you can have DeGrom, Gore, and Eovaldi at the front of that rotation with whatever we get from Tyler Mahle and Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, that grouping of players. Thoughts more when it comes to the Rangers and their potential for postseason success this coming year?
Now, you mentioned the rotation, right? If they can stay healthy. Are we really going to get a full season health again from DeGrom? They babied him last year. Remember, he barely was going 5 innings the first couple of months of the season. He had a fantastic season. Listen, as a baseball fan, I hope DeGrom is healthy and can make 27 starts. I'm not even asking for 32. 27, I'll take that. That being said, I would set the over-under probably at 24.5, and I think I'm leaning towards the under. I just can't see him going back-to-back years. Eovaldi gets hurt a lot as well. Now, I understand, Tom, we can say this about almost every pitcher in every rotation. All right, they all get hurt. It's a long season there, I get that. But I do worry about these guys maybe more than most. I'm a Mackenzie Gore fan. I'm a Yankee guy. I was hoping the Yankees at one point would be able to land him here. But it's another trade that I think is going to work out for both teams. I like busting our producer's chops, Samuel. I know the Nationals fan here, but I do like the trade for the Nationals as well. I probably would have preferred the Nationals to sign him. It's the same thing with Milwaukee Peralta. When you have a guy, shouldn't you sign the guy unless you don't trust that he's going to be I guess be that good pitcher 3, 4, 5 years down the line. But Gore is younger than Peralta as well. I like the trade for both sides here, but I think Texas is going for the immediate. They're only going to have to go on for another couple of years, right? At most. Eovaldi, same thing. They're going to win now. So they're doing what they have to do.
And then finally, your thoughts on your Yankees re-signing Bellinger, 5 years for him. Kind of the move that they needed to make after a bit of a quiet offseason. we're going to run it back for next year with the Yanks, or what we saw, last year is going to be much of the same this upcoming season?
The Yankees are listen, I have no problem with the Bellinger signing. Right, he fits the Yankees perfectly. Can play center, can play left, can play right, can play first base, and they need someone like that, a utility guy who can play all around. That when I say that, by the way, I'm saying defensively, he's going to be an everyday player. We know that. Left-handed bat who proved he can play in New York, also important. Gives Judge some protection in that lineup as well. The Yankees are running it back with the same team. All right, this is the same team from last year, with the exception of the bullpen. Right, the bullpen is nowhere near what it was last season. That could be the Yankees' downfall this year, until if and when Cashman can fix it. Rice at first base over Goldschmidt. Okay, he's better offensively, much worse defensively. Jazz is going to be your second base shortstop, sort of a nightmare with Caballero and Volpe. We'll see what you can get. McMahon seems to be a good glove, no hit. Can't be any worse than catcher. Right, Wells didn't do much offensively, so there is some upside there. My question is going to be this: does anybody really think Grisham's hitting 35 home runs again? That seems to be, you're really drinking the Kool-Aid there. Stanton, he'll be productive when he plays, but he'll miss a certain amount of games. Dominguez will make up for it. I'm not expecting much from Cole, Tom. All right, you miss a season with Tommy John. What are we really expecting here? He won't be back till May, June anyway. Rodon's out till May. You did pick up Weathers. You got Schlittler for the entire season. The starting rotation should be good enough, but maybe not as great as some people believe it could be, just with the injuries alone. Like Cole and Rodon, just don't know if you're going to get true effects of those. But they'll be a good team. They're a playoff team. They're right there with Toronto, right there with Boston. Baltimore's going to be a good team as well. I mean, so the American League East is going to be a bear this year. I don't expect much from Tampa Bay, but sometimes they can be an annoying little gnat. But I would probably still, and I'll probably bet on them, I would still probably bet the Toronto Blue Jays to win the American League East.
Certainly. The rotation for the Yankees is, like you said, a little bit up in the air with Cole and Rodon out. Hopefully are healthy to end the season when they need them the most. But plenty of baseball news and notes as we are leading into pitchers and catchers in just a few weeks at this point. Thanks to George Kurtz for stopping by, giving us thoughts on tonight's NHL slate, the NFL action, and then these recent MLB signings and trades and whatnot. Thanks to George for being here. We'll be back right here on SportsGrid going through the rest of today's action. We have a couple more guests coming up through NHL, NBA, NFL. Stay tuned right here.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NCAA always has a complicated relationship with sports betting. It's, of course, they were the title litigants in the fall of the federal ban. They were trying to stop New Jersey from offering it. They just don't like sports betting, right? I think they understand that people bet on their games and it probably drives engagement, but at the end of the day, they see this as a threat. We know all the scandals that have happened around college sports.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not either.
That's fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. There's
more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
GameTime Decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. You say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
We are back right here on SportsGrid, Game Time Decisions. My name is Tom Vecchio. Thanks to George Kurtz for stopping by, giving his thoughts across the NHL slate tonight, the NFL games this weekend, and of course the recent MLB news. Let's kind of reset things here before we have our next guest on. Let's turn to my two favorite bets for tonight. One in the NHL, one in the NBA. Let's turn to the Montreal Canadiens at home, hosting the Buffalo Sabres. That game over 6.5. It's sitting on -115. Both teams can score, specifically the Habs at home. They are phenomenal, but also the defense is very suspect for both teams, notably the Habs as well. They score a ton, they give up a ton of goals, and that produces a game environment where they could lose 5-3, they could win 5-3, they could win 6-2. It doesn't really matter at a certain point as long as the goals are coming early and often. This is also the third game in 4 nights for the Sabres, end of a road trip for them. So some tired legs for them. Hopefully the Habs get out and early and we see a nice competitive back and forth game. And of course, we're hoping for always a 3-3 tie, which would be fantastic, giving us that automatic 7th goal. Next up, let's turn to the NBA. We have an 8-game NHL slate, 8-game NBA slate. And really, when it comes to the NBA, we do have some marquee matchups on tonight's slate. There's no doubt about that, with the Houston Rockets visiting the Philadelphia 76ers, the Golden State Warriors visiting the Dallas Mavericks, and then the Los Angeles Lakers, quote-unquote, visiting the Los Angeles Clippers in that crosstown rivalry. So there's plenty of marquee games on tonight's slate. I don't always want to look there when it comes to the NBA. I want to find the value in some of these underlying games and some of these underlying, maybe not household name players. And let's turn to Peyton Watson for the Denver Nuggets, over 26.5 PRA points, rebounds, and assists combined. And as I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, I'll go through this again. I always like to look, especially in the NBA, at the most relevant sample size that we could possibly get. And for the Denver Nuggets specifically, that sample size would be A, without Jokic, because he's out, and B, also without Cam Johnson, who's been out for a month at this point. His last game was December 23rd. And yes, Cam Johnson may not be the most impactful player, but he is certainly a consistent player who has minutes and gets a good amount of usage. So when we account for both Jokic and Johnson being out for the Nuggets, Peyton Watson has a 4.4% increase in offensive usage. That is fantastic to see. We also see him playing a consistent amount of minutes on a nightly basis in the mid to upper 30s. He has 2 games since the start of January where he's fallen below 30 minutes, and that was due to foul trouble against Brooklyn back on January 4th. He had four fouls, so ending with 29 minutes. Not really an issue for me. And then this past weekend on the 18th against Charlotte, that game was a blowout. Denver lost that, and he did not play at all in the fourth quarter, still ended with 29 minutes. So 2 games we can essentially, quote unquote, forgive due to foul trouble and due to the game environment getting out of hand. Other than that, he's in the mid to upper 30s every single night. He's averaging in the mid to upper teens when it comes to field goal attempts, and he takes a good amount from downtown. He's not a super high volume downtown shooter. 4, 5, 6 threes per game, I think, is solid. He is hitting them at a 40% clip, which is fantastic. So that brings him some scoring upside. And then most importantly, it's the peripheral stats, which can help him get to this number. Averaging 6 and 3 when it comes to rebounds in the month of January brings him that solid base. So we have a player that sees good minutes, has good offensive usage, is basically consistent on a nightly basis from the field, has scoring upside due to the threes, brings in the peripheral stats, which can help him get to 10, 11, 12 combined. And then most importantly, the matchup. Denver going up against the Washington Wizards. We have an easy as it gets when it comes to the Wizards. They are the second worst team in the league when it comes to defensive efficiency. So we roll this all together, and we have a player who's not a household name, not playing in one of the marquee games, but a player who is consistently pushing himself towards 30 PRA. So give me Peyton Watson over 26.5 points, rebounds, and assists, sitting at -118. Great time for not only him, but also the Nuggets in general to kind of right the ship after these 2 most recent losses. They should be able to get it done against the Wizards. If I had to go to a game line, a pick for that game in terms of lines, I would, of course, lay it with Denver. I think they get it done when it's all said and done in this matchup against Washington. We have plenty more to get to. We have two more guests coming up. Mark Zinno coming up soon. He will talk through his NBA card for tonight. Brady Cannon will be up at 7:30 talking through some golf and, of course, the NFL action with him. There's plenty to get to right here on Sports Grid. NHL, NBA starting right now because it's 7 o'clock. We will cover all of this throughout tonight. And then, of course, IGL coming up after me at 8 p.m. Stay tuned right here on Sports Grid. We'll be back after this.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on Sports Grid.
NCAA always has a complicated relationship with sports betting. It's, of course, they were the title litigants in the fall of the federal ban. They were trying to stop New Jersey from offering it. They just don't like sports betting, right? I think they understand that people bet on their games and it probably drives engagement, but at the end of the day, they see this as a threat. We know all the scandals that have happened around college sports.
Newswire. Only on Sports Grid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not either.
That's fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. There's
more. Hold on a second.
Hang on. Go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
Game Time Decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. You say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's the head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line. Only on Sports Grid.
We're here live on Sports Grid, Game Time Decisions. We'll have Mark Zinno coming on in just a few minutes, give his thoughts about tonight's NBA slate along with the NFL. There's plenty to get to. We discussed things briefly with the NFL in terms of the lines and how they've moved. We've seen New England now as a 4.5-point favorite. We've seen the total change in that game. We still see the Seahawks laying 2.5 at home. The total has moved slightly in that game. An exciting time to be not only just an NFL fan, but a sports fan overall. 8 games underway or getting underway in the NBA slate. 8 games getting underway when it comes to the NHL. We have a ton to get to. As I mentioned, one of my favorite bets would be Peyton Watson for the Nuggets. Over 26.5 PRA going up against the Wizards. That game tips off in about 10 minutes. And then Canadians and the Sabres over 6.5. That game is also set to get underway shortly. Now let's welcome on Mark Zinno, of course, a host, a guest you hear all the time right here on Sports Grid. Mark, welcome to the show. 8 games on tonight's NBA slate. Where are you looking? Because we have some marquee matchups between the Rockets and the 76ers. We have the Splash Bros going up against each other. Where are you looking tonight?
Well, there's a couple of games. I mean, the Houston-Philadelphia line was very curious to me, and the fact that it's come down from the 2.5 down to 1.5 is pretty telling. I thought the number felt a little bit short, but like in a weird fishy way. Like, hey, Houston has been playing pretty well as of late. All of a sudden, is just a short favorite against Philadelphia. So I kind of lean the Sixers in that spot. I think there are 2 games late on the slate that I like. San Antonio, Utah over. Utah is the highest scoring team in the NBA at home. They're also the worst offensive team in the league in the NBA at home. So kind of a couple of outs here that San Antonio could easily get to 130. But if Utah gets above 110 here, I don't see a reason why this thing doesn't get to the 240s. I think that's the way to look at it. And I think the Clippers-Lakers game goes over as well. It's interesting because look at this matchup between these two teams. It was a 135-118 final in the beginning of the year. And so they clearly went over the total there. The second game was that 103-88 final in favor of the Clippers, and that was the one that started this 13-3 run that they've been on. The Lakers were a complete no-show in that game and trailed the entire time from wire to wire here. And look, Kawhi Leonard sat out last night on the back end, or the last game rather, on the back end of a back-to-back. And so I assume he's going to be back in tonight. We don't know, but I would wait till we get confirmation. But I like this game to go over here as well. And even if Kawhi's out to a certain extent, there's an argument, Tom, that it's worth playing the over because they're not as good defensively without Kawhi in the lineup. So I think there's enough here for both of these teams to get over that total.
Now, when it comes to the Warriors and the Mavericks, how are you looking to bet the Warriors? You lose Jimmy Butler. There's some turmoil within the locker room that Kuminga wants to be traded, as he still has for years at this point. Are you looking to fade them? Because I have no interest in backing the Warriors at 6.5, really now or anytime moving forward.
I don't either. But you're talking about a Dallas team that's also pretty bad on the defensive end, right? Like, this isn't a team that I think that I really want to get involved with just because of the way they're constructed. I think you have to wait to see how this all normalizes, right? You have to wait and see what the fallout is of Jimmy Butler's injury and how they compensate for those points and those minutes and who they choose to give it to. So it's a tough bet at this point in time, unless I see something that makes me feel like there's a number that's way off. Most of these games are going to be a stay away here, but I mean, I just genuinely have to lean on Dallas at this point, as a short home dog, despite the fact that, Steph Curry's still on the floor and so is Draymond Green for the Golden State Warriors.
All right, so we just got a report that Keontae George for the Jazz is available to play, so that will certainly help the scoring environment that you were referring to for the Jazz. If we can flip over to NFL quickly for the two championship games this weekend, the prevailing sentiment I have for the Denver and the Pats game is that the Pats can win a high-scoring game, Pats can win a low-scoring game, Denver can win a low-scoring game, but Denver can't win a high-scoring game. I think they want to keep this game close to the vest and really insulate Stidham to an extent. What are your thoughts on this game? Because I do not think they want to turn this into a shootout.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a shootout. They're not playing the Buffalo Bills. They're playing the New England Patriots, so it's a whole different level. But I do think we're undervaluing here Jarrett Stidham and the Broncos offense. Two bets that I've already placed are Jarrett Stidham's over passing yards at 187.5, because guess what? This is still Sean Payton we're talking about. He's the best coach in the league. We don't talk about this enough, that he's the best coach in the league and that he will scheme this whole thing open for Jarrett Stidham to be successful. The last two times we saw Jarrett Stidham, granted, it was 2 years ago. He went for over 200 yards in both those games. Granted, they were end of the season games that didn't really mean much when Denver was out of the playoffs. Granted, they were against bad teams. All of that aside, I still trust Sean Payton here. I mean, look, he's been in the system for 3 years. It's not like he doesn't know how to run this system. He just hasn't needed or had an opportunity to play just simply because Bo Nix has always been healthy. So Sean Payton would have hung on to him this long if he couldn't do what he needed to do. Go back to his days in New Orleans with Taysom Hill when he had to make a spot start, right? We still got effective plays from him because Sean Payton is that good of a schemer and a game planner that I think Jarrett Stidham's going to go over here. And guess what, Tom? Denver's team total over 17.5. Like, I don't see a world where Denver only scores 17 points. And not only do they not win the game with 17, they don't probably cover it either. I mean, all things considered, Denver's defense is good. The Bills still put up 30 on them. Now, Drake May isn't Josh Allen, but the Patriots, I think, are going to be able to score, and that's going to force Denver to have to score. I think we go over the total in the game. I think Denver goes over its team total because I don't think it goes over the total in the game without Denver doing it. And look, if Houston can put up 20 points on the Patriots, the Broncos offense certainly can. Houston might be one of the worst offenses in the league. And even at that, Tom, let's just say it's a 30-14 blowout with 3 minutes left. And Denver is still chugging down the field. There's a garbage touchdown somewhere in this whole thing that puts them over that number. So now, there are a lot of outs with Denver's team total.
What do you make of Drake May and the fumbles and turnovers in these recent games? Because if he's doing that with that offensive line versus the Chargers and the Texans, I have to assume that the Denver defense, they want to be tuned up to another level to be the deciding factor in this game and know that a lot of the game rests on their shoulders. Because I'm interested in backing Nick Benito when it comes to a sack prop or something along those lines, knowing that they have to be amazing.
Well, I think Drake May to throw an interception probably is a reliable prop. I would agree with you that given Denver's pressure rate and their success at getting to the quarterback, you're likely to get a tip ball. You're likely to get a ball that has to be rushed out and deflected and ends up in the hands of the Broncos. I mean, if the Broncos don't force any turnovers in this game, even if they don't, turn the ball over themselves, like, I don't know that they can win it. They have to win the turnover battle. They have to create extra possessions for themselves because it might take Jared Stidham a half to get going. And at that point in time, you could be down 13-3 or 17-3 or whatever it may be. And you find yourself in this spot where you're chasing. And that's not a favorable spot for Denver to be in. So their defense is going to have to create some more turnovers and more possessions for them. If they can't do it, I don't like their chances.
Now, when we turn to the NFC Championship, Rams, Seahawks, I'm still a little bit wary on Sam Darnold, the oblique. Even if Sam Darnold was fully healthy, I'm not sure I'd be loving this spot for him. But also, the Rams haven't looked amazing over the past 2 weeks. Thoughts on this game?
I'm backing the Rams at plus 2.5. I don't think I'll need it, but considering the last game ended, 21-19? I'm willing to take the 2.5 points here. I just think the Rams are the better team, and I think they have been. I mean, Sean McVay, for as sketchy as he is sometimes in the playoffs with coaching, wow. I think that these two teams know each other well enough, and the edge goes to McVay and the Rams that they're going to be able to get this thing done. I think Zach Charbonnet's loss isn't talked about enough about how much that's going to affect this team, and where those extra carries and where those extra receptions are going to come from. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's Raheed Shaheed. Maybe you look to it's his prop to replace Charbonnet, but I still like the Rams here probably to win the game outright.
Yeah, certainly an interesting matchup. McVay, like you said, sometimes some questionable calls, but at the end of the day, I do think he is the better coach when it's all said and done. And the talent is on the offensive side when it comes to the Rams. Thanks to Mark Zinno for stopping by. We'll be back right here. Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid rolls on.
What is going on with this John Morant saga, right? John's on the block. John wants to be traded. But now John comes back and he denies all trade targets, and John says he has no desire to play elsewhere. So he shut it down. He's still viewed as a franchise centerpiece when on the floor. Memphis, they're better with him.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. And say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clint Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
There's more. Hold on a second.
Hang on. Go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
We are back right here on SportsGrid, Game Time Decisions. My name is Tom Vecchio. Thanks to Mark Zinno for coming on, talking some NBA, some NFL, giving his thoughts on that. Again, he likes the over when it comes to Utah, San Antonio, a little bit late night. Also likes the over when it comes to the LA matchup for Lakers, Clippers, looking to a Denver team total, and then backing the Rams as 2.5-point underdogs. We are off and running for tonight's 7 o'clock NHL slate, NBA slate. We already have a goal in Buffalo, Montreal. As I said, that was one of my favorite bets for tonight's slate. Buffalo and Montreal. Jason Zucker getting it through for the Sabres, so they are off and running there. We have action across the rest of the NHL. It is 0-0 just underway when it comes to Blackhawks and Canes, 0-0. Golden Knights, Bruins, and also scoreless when it comes to Stars, Blue Jackets. We're off and running for 3 NBA games right now. Hornets out to a lead 8-3 over the Magic. Rockets are up 8-7 over the 76ers. And then the Nuggets are getting things going 9-5 right now over the Wizards. Of course, we are very early in all of those games. Coming up next, we will have the Warriors visiting the Mavericks. It's 6.5 that the Warriors are laying. 235.5 is the live total for that one. Talking through this game, it's an interesting spot knowing that the Warriors have lost Jimmy Butler. Where's that scoring coming from? As Mark pointed out, we know that Dallas is not a good team. There's no doubt about it. I got a question on Twitter just a few minutes ago, asking about Cooper Flagg and his PRA over. Notably for Cooper Flagg, I will say in some of the games, that I've watched and have bet on him. Sometimes he starts off a little bit slow, and that is always an interesting thing. When he starts off a little bit slow and he only has 1 field goal attempt through 1 quarter, he has 2 field goal attempts through a quarter and a half, and he's sitting on 3, 4, 5 points, and it certainly doesn't present a level of comfort that I love. And frankly, when we're looking at the Mavericks starting lineup, I often wonder if he's not shooting the ball, where is the production often coming from? And, sometimes they mix things up. Sometimes it's going to be a bit of a big man game. Point being is that I often like looking to Cooper Flagg as an in-game betting opportunity. If he does start off with a scoring being slow, you can look to jump on him in-game because we're often getting a far, far better number if he only has 1, 2, 3, 4 points after 1 quarter. So that's the best way I would approach Cooper Flagg, because we know that he's such a public player and his props are often bet up, up, and up, that we can get a better number if we just wait a quarter or two. So as long as the field goal attempts are there for Cooper Flagg and the game is staying somewhat competitive, a lack of scoring doesn't always bother me with him. That game is coming up at 7:40. We have Bulls taking on the Timberwolves. That starts at 8:10. We have a 239.5 total for that one. We have the Timberwolves laying 9.5 at home, as I mentioned. We should be seeing Josh Giddey out there for the Bulls. He was listed on the injury report earlier today. I'm looking at points in this one. It's really that simple. Points, points, points. Minnesota getting out and running early is where I would look. When it comes to the 8 o'clock games for the NHL, we had George Kurtz on a little bit earlier. He was talking Panthers, Jets, Sens, Preds. Frankly, I lean Sens. I think they're the better team. I lean Panthers. George did mention, some weird things or some weird inconsistencies with the Jets, knowing that they have really top-end talent with Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuyck-Knapp, but they're seemingly not putting the pieces together. And this is not to say that the Panthers have put the pieces together this season, because there's no doubt that they haven't put the pieces together, and the inconsistencies with their lineup, just getting Matthew Tkachuk back, losing Seth Jones, one of their best defenders, knowing that Barkov hasn't been here the entire season. It's tough to back either team. Frankly, I would look to see how this game starts off, because the 6.5 being so heavily juiced to the under and minus 140 is something to keep a note of. I would rather wait for this game to start off slow and then potentially play a live over at 5.5 if we get there. And frankly, I would play the live 5.5 at minus 140 over 5.5 instead of the 6.5, even though you are getting plus 114 on the 6.5. I would honestly wait and get a 5.5, even if it had a little bit of juice. Again, Sens Preds, really an uninteresting game when it's all said and done on tonight's NHL slate. I think the Senators are the better team. I would look to back them more often than not. The Predators just don't have enough offensive juice. This is not to say that they can't score, because the Senators have been terrible on defense this season, but well-rounded. Give me the Senators to win this game in essentially a money line pickup. After that, we move to Penguins visiting the Oilers. This is certainly a very exciting game with Sidney Crosby and the Penguins visiting Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. As I mentioned, I like the Oilers to win in regulation. That is the 60-minute money line, the three-way money line, whatever your book may call it. Significantly better than the minus 178 price that they currently are listed on the normal money line. It's minus 105 for the Oilers to win in regulation. That's where I'll be looking for some late night NHL action. And then for some late night NBA action, we just had Mark Zinawand. He was mentioning that he likes the Spurs Jazz over 238.5. The Jazz are an absolute rocket ship for scoring when it comes to being at home, but they also lack defense, which presents us with a fantastic game environment, back and forth. Spurs pouring in 130-ish of their own, the Jazz getting into the 1-teens, and will be in a good spot for points there. And then also, as I was talking with Mark, the Clippers-Lakers matchup, which could also feature plenty of points. I will say the Lakers are a team I've looked to back mostly when it comes to their team total this year, rather than going to the game total overall. But a 222.5 game total certainly does feel a little bit light for this matchup. And I will also be looking to back the over in that one. So we are off and running when it comes to the NBA slate. The NHL slate, we're coming up against a break right now. We got some scoring in the NHL games with the Sabres going up 1-0. We'll take a look at the box score for Nuggets Wizards to see where Peyton Watson is off to. They're up 13-10. Rockets are up 19-12. They've jumped out to a little bit of a lead and are live 5.5-point favorites. And then we'll wrap all this up, discuss more NFL, and we'll even get into some golf with Brady Cannon, who's coming on in about 10 minutes. We'll take a look at the golf tournament this weekend, and of course, his thoughts for the AFC and NFC championship game. Stay tuned right here on SportsGrid Game Time Decisions. We'll be back.
What is going on with this Ja Morant saga, right? Ja's on the block. Ja wants to be traded. But now Ja comes back and he denies all trade talk and says Ja says he has no desire to play elsewhere. So he shut it down. He's still viewed as a franchise centerpiece when on the floor. Memphis, they're better with him.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. You say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clint Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
That's fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. There's
more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here, Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid. My name is Tom Vecchio. We have some NBA, NHL action underway as the 7 o'clock window has arrived. Sabres are up 1-0 over the Canadians. As I mentioned, that was my favorite NHL bet of the day, over 6.5. We also have the NBA games off and running. Hornets up 14-6 over the Magic right now. Rockets are up 22-17 over the 76ers, and then the Nuggets are up 19-13 over the Wizards. That game is getting off and running as we like to see. Checking in on Peyton Watson, I said that he was my favorite bet of the night for over 26.5 PRA for him. He's got 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. We love to see it. We love to see it. We love seeing a very solid, 7 combined, and we still have 4 minutes left in the first. And again, it's the peripheral stats. He's 1 of 3 from the field, right? He's hit the only 3 that he's hit. The 3 points he has is a 3-pointer, but he's 1 of 3. We're getting good field goals. We got 1 from downtown, and the peripheral stats will always keep this afloat. As long as he can do modest scoring, the rebounds and assists will always put him in play for over 26.5. I will say the total for Sabres Canadians is still at 6.5. It is juiced at -140 to the over. The Blue Jackets have poured in a goal of their own. They are up 1-0 over the Stars. Let's turn to some MLB news and notes. Let's recap of what we have seen not only earlier today, but over the past few days. Let's get some thoughts out there on these various topics. Number one, the Mackenzie Gore trade today from the Washington Nationals to the Texas Rangers. Really a good trade on both sides. The Nats get back a haul of prospects. Obviously, it's yet to be seen how they develop, but the Rangers get a consistent starter. And I don't want to say elite just yet. I am a Mackenzie Gore believer. Obviously, with the trade, the second time he's been traded, really from the Padres to the Nationals in the Juan Soto deal years ago. But Mackenzie Gore has a phenomenal 30+% strikeout rate. The issue for him would be the walks and the home runs. And he had an electric start to the season, literally on opening day when he had double-digit strikeouts. And the first half of the season was phenomenal for him. But the second half of the season, that's really where he ran into some road bumps. And maybe it was just the length of the season, that many innings, whatever it might be. But finding a happy medium between a massive 30% strikeout rate and then the walks and the home runs, even if you told me that strikeout rate came down to 28% and he was able to control the walks and control the home runs, point being, that puts him in a great spot in that rotation for the Rangers alongside DeGrom, alongside Eovaldi. Tyler Mahle, if he can stay healthy, along with DeGrom and Eovaldi, they have their own health issues. But then Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter. Now we have a mix of 6 pitchers, essentially, that can all filter into the rotation. One gets hurt, the other one steps in. I think it's a great landing spot for Mackenzie Gore, and I have a lot of interest in the Rangers for this upcoming season. Next up, Freddie Peralta, last night being traded from the Brewers to the Mets. The Mets adding that front-end rotation help that they desperately needed. It was a very, very quiet offseason for them. They made some bullpen additions here or there. Really losing Alonso, losing Edwin Diaz was the notes for the Mets. Signing Luke Weaver, I don't think, eased the fans after losing Pete Alonso and Diaz. But then you go out and you trade for Freddie Peralta, which is what the Mets needed. And now he is an impending free agent after this upcoming season. But that's what they need from him and really helps their rotation overall. Earlier in the week, they trade for Luis Robert from the Chicago White Sox, a player whose name has been rumored to be traded for years at this point. Hopefully, the new venue and the new scenery for Luis Robert, and most importantly, the lineup protection will allow us to see the true upside that Luis Robert was known to have when he was a top prospect, added to the White Sox and their system. Part of that lineup protection will be Bo Bichette, who the Mets also signed. So a lineup that features Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Bo Bichette, now Polanco, who's going to be playing first base for them, and we can add in Luis Robert in there. That's looking like a very, very solid lineup. A lot of power potential. We know that Citi Field isn't the most ideal hitter's park, but when they're playing on the road in Philly, when they're playing in Atlanta, those are some very, very favorable hitting conditions. So the Mets scoring runs early and often is going to be, I would say, something that we see right from the jump of the season, essentially. So that's something that we should be looking back. Mets team totals is going to be very interesting. And then really the HRR, the hit run RBI market for Soto, for Lindor, for Bichette are all going to be very, very profitable this season. We're coming up against a break right now. We'll have Brady Cannon on after the break. We'll talk some golf. We'll talk some NFL. We have plenty to get to. Stay tuned right here. Game Time Decisions on Sports Grid rolls on. We'll be back after this.
Franchise centerpiece went on the floor. Memphis, they're better with them.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. You say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's the head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
There's more. Hold on a second.
Hang on. Go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here, Game Time Decisions on Sports Grid. Let's welcome on our third guest of the show, Brady Cannon. And we have plenty to get to, Brady. Action that is right up your alley, really, both golf and the NFL. First off, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining me on this show. When it comes to the American Express this week, what were your thoughts going into it? Obviously, we know from a betting perspective, Scotty Scheffler is always going to be up at the top, but I know you like to take the longer shots on some players. Where were you heading into today?
Yeah, this is a crazy tournament, Tom. It's really not one of my favorite tournaments on the PGA Tour, and it's part of the year where I always use as kind of my preseason. You got a couple events in Hawaii this year. Unfortunately, we only had one event in Hawaii. Now the American Express, and then next week, Torrey Pines. We start playing big boy golf next week. The next four events on the West Coast swing are all really big, with Torrey Pines and Pebble Beach, and then Phoenix for Super Bowl weekend. And then, of course, the Genesis Invitational at Riviera Tigers tournament. And then we kick off the Florida swing. So typically I like to use the first 2 or 3 weeks to kind of get a feel for who's playing well. And now we're kind of thrust into it with one less Hawaii event, but they play on multiple courses here. There's 3 different courses. It's really, really easy. You saw a couple guys shoot 62 today. So it's a birdie fest. It's on 3 different golf courses, and there's amateurs. It's a pro-am. So, it's like 5-6 hour rounds playing with these CEOs of big companies and stuff. And you get very, very random results. Scotty Scheffler, of all people, has never won this tournament, and it's probably the weakest field he ever competes against. Now, he got off to a heck of a start today. But we've had, in the last 7 years, you've had 4 guys win this event that have been 150 to 500 to 1 long shots. So yeah, to your point, I did not land on Scotty. He was like 3 to 1 this week. And the next closest pursuer was like 25 to 1. So, I mean, the separation in the pricing was really crazy this week. And I didn't even land on those guys. My shortest guy, what do you know? He's off to a great start. He's in the lead. My shortest guy was Pearson Cootie at 80 to 1. And he went nuts today and shot 62, and he's tied for the lead. So we'll see if he can hang on.
Now, would there be anyone in the live market that you'd be looking to back? Because still, Scotty leads things. He's at 2 to 1 at this point. But I assume Jason Day or Bobby McIntyre, these numbers have moved so much from where they were pre-tournament that they may not be worth betting at this point. But does anyone jump out to you, knowing, like you said, that there's an easy path to them putting up a 62 or 63 tomorrow?
Yeah, birdie fests are weird because, I mean, if you make a bogey, it's like death. You can't really afford to lose strokes. I mean, you've got guys, 2 guys that shot 10 under today. What's the winning score going to be? 30 under? I mean, it's pretty nuts. And you don't, and if you have a track meet like that, you don't necessarily want to take Scotty Scheffler at 2 to 1. So you mentioned Jason Day. This is probably, I think, the best way to look at if you're going to land on someone tonight. And honestly, I'd probably wait one more day. But if you want to get involved tonight, I would look at the guys who played well on the Stadium course. If you look at the abbreviations on the leaderboard there, you'll see LQ, that's La Quinta, NT, that's the Nicklaus Tournament course, and then SC is the Pete Dye Stadium course. That is the hardest golf course of the 3. The other 2 are very, very easy. They're all pretty easy. The other 2 are really easy. The Stadium course is the toughest one, and everybody will play 1 round on each. And then on Saturday afternoon is when they'll make the cut. And then the final round, they'll go back to the Stadium course for Sunday. So the guys that went really low on the Stadium course today might be guys that you want to look at going forward because they've got the easiest courses in front of them for the next 2 days. And Jason Day is one of those guys. He shot 9 under on the most difficult course today. And then also Bo Hostler, who's kind of a, Mr. American Express birdie fest himself. He's always a guy that shows up at these tournaments in, watered down fields. And that's really what he is. He's never won on tour before, but he shows up in these types of events. And he had a really good round on the Stadium course today as well. So again, that's probably the way I would attack it if you really want to get involved today, because those guys have the easier stuff coming up for the next couple of days.
All right, so the American Express round 1 is complete. Round 2 getting underway tomorrow. If we flip over to the NFL, Brady, you and I have talked, plenty of NFL throughout the season. What were your thoughts coming into the week, and then how did your process change knowing that Stidham took over for the Denver Broncos? And then, as you always like to say, once you actually crunch the numbers, where did you land on things? Because we've seen a little bit of line movement and total move in both games.
Yep, we sure have. And I was really just chomping at the bit to fade Denver in their next outing because they were really lucky to win that football game. They were the beneficiary of 5 turnovers, and I was ready to go against them. And then the whole Jared Stidham, Bo Nix thing happened, and I went, oh boy, this really throws a fly into the ointment. And now you've got them as a massive home underdog. It's the fallen hero theory, what we talk about. I think the rest of the team has been put on notice. They know their guy is not available, and they're going to have to step up and fill that void. And I think you get an inspired effort here from this Denver defense, which has fallen off as, in the last handful of weeks or so, and has been susceptible versus what we saw early in the year where they were just lights out. I think you get some of that lights out defense this time around. The crowd, the team, everybody is going to be really inspired, I think, with this change at quarterback. It almost is like a wake-up call. And Sean Payton, we know he can game plan for quarterbacks very, very well. Now, New England is an excellent squad, and they're a really tough out. And Drake May is really, really good. But, when they have played against better teams, they have not fared as well. And now you have a situation where they're going on the road into, probably one of the biggest home field advantages in football at that elevation. So I think it's going to be very difficult for New England. When I crunch the numbers, I come out with Denver as a 4.5-point favorite. Now, that's all based upon Bo Nix. But are we saying it's a 9-point swing to Jared Stidham? I don't think so. I did play Denver in a teaser. I teased them up anything over 10, which you can get to plus 10.5 or 11 at this point. And then I teased them with the Rams because when I crunch the numbers on the Rams, I come out with them as a 1-point favorite. I'm looking at both underdogs, Tom, and I quite honestly, I think they're both going to win outright. I think we have a Rams-Broncos Super Bowl in Santa Clara in a couple weeks.
All right. So I assume that's where you land on the Rams. You're looking to back the Rams at 2.5. Any thoughts on the total when it comes to that game? Because it's certainly an interesting spot. I'm still relatively hesitant, lukewarm, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to the Seattle offense and Sam Darnold potentially not being healthy with the oblique. I think last week's game was a bit of an outlier, knowing that they could protect him, run the ball against a depleted defense for the 49ers. Thoughts on the total in that game?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I teased both the Rams and Denver.
Right.
I don't necessarily love taking a 2.5, even though I like that side. I felt better about teasing both Denver and the Rams. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if both of them won outright. The total, I think there's probably a little bit of inflation in the line in the side and the total with Seattle because of what they did to San Francisco. And we know San Francisco was basically just completely out of players and gas at that point. And, got off to a horrific start with the return for a touchdown, and it was all just snowballed from there. So I think the Seattle total has been inflated a little bit to the over, and also the side because of what we've seen them do as of late. And we've also seen the Rams kind of slip a little bit as of late. So I think there could be some line value on Los Angeles and maybe the under as well. We know this defense is really good. The Rams, kind of like Denver, their defense hasn't looked as sharp the last couple of weeks. I think they show up as well. Completely familiar opponent. They know what's going on here. I would lean under in that one. And in the early game, I would probably lean to the over. Just because we know what Denver's defense has been doing as of late. They've been giving up more points, but the Denver Patriots game is a tougher one for me to land on because I expect that Denver defense to really show up.
That's Brady Cannon. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be right back on Game Time Decisions.
What is going on with this John Morant saga? Right? John's on the block. John wants to be traded. But now John comes back and he denies all trade talk and John says he has no desire to play elsewhere. So he shut it down. He's still viewed as a franchise centerpiece when on the floor. Memphis, they're better with him.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. You say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's the head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
fine that you believe that. But here's the thing. There's
more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, go ahead.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
Game Time Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here on SportsGrid, Game Time Decisions. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'm filling in for Kevin Walsh. We now welcome on our next guest, Craig Mish, baseball knows everything, Marlins insider extraordinaire. Welcome to the show. We talked earlier today, and we've had some news since then. Mackenzie Gore being traded from the Nationals to the Rangers. Rangers getting a haul of prospects back. I really like where the Rangers rotation sits as of now. Immediate thoughts on this one?
Quiet off season, to say the least. I think we could start there, Tom, with the Texas Rangers. And, they made a managerial change in the offseason, but beyond that, they really didn't add a ton to their offense. They, of course, traded Marcus Semien, got Brandon Nimmo, tinkered with the offense a little bit by saying farewell to Adolis Garcia. So, it just seems like the iron was hot. They must have struck at this time. In terms of the prospect return, it does seem like Washington is going to do very well with this deal. I don't know if it'll be as good, obviously, as the Juan Soto trade that they made in the past. So signal very clear for Washington, even in a rebuild, going to take another step back in this rebuild probably for another year or two with their new management involved. And for the Rangers in a division that's extremely winnable, Gore should slot into their, I would say, at the very worst, number 2 starter, could even be their ace by the end of the year.
And then when it comes to another NL East team, the Mets have made a slew of moves really over the past few days. The trades to get Freddie Peralta, the trades to get Luis Robert, and then the signing of Bo Bichette. Is this plan B for them? They weren't able to get, Kyle Tucker. They weren't able to make a big splash, but then this was the pivot to get these next grouping of players to really make any notable moves after losing Alonso and Diaz in the offseason.
Yeah, I think it started with losing Pete Alonso. I think the Mets probably thought they would bring him back, Tom. And then when that didn't happen, feels like they sort of took that money that they could have given Pete Alonso and increased it and offered it to Kyle Tucker. And I guess they decided they were just going to wait that market out, and they did not end up winning the services of Tucker. So at that point, if you are David Stearns and you are the owner, Steve Cohen, you're looking at the team saying, are we really even better than we were last year? And that answer was no. And at that point, they took the best available free agent remaining, and they ended up getting Bo Bichette, sort of stealing him away, it seems like, from the Philadelphia Phillies. And now they've added a nice rotation piece with Freddie Peralta. But, nobody wins on paper, but the Mets didn't win on paper or on the field last year, Tom. So maybe this luck will serve them better to sort of change the chemistry and the dynamic of the squad. I'm not so sure it'll work. It really hasn't worked for the Mets the last few years, but they didn't make the playoffs last year, so they're sort of justified to be able to try new things.
And then we saw the Yankees re-sign Cody Bellinger, 5-year deal for him. To me, it seems like the Yankees are simply running it back with the same lineup they had last year and a weaker bullpen when it's all said and done.
Yeah, but Garrett Cole comes back. There'll be some upgrades there, and a contract year, I believe, coming for Jazz Chisholm Jr., which certainly could help him as well. Cam Schlittler. They found some nice pieces, I thought, at different points last year. So my confidence level in the Yankees is pretty much always the same. I know they did almost take home the prize a couple of years ago, but just based on the roster construction, a lot of highs with the Yankees, Tom, a lot of lows with the Yankees, and they get in the playoffs. And sometimes they find that offense goes cold. I'm not particularly worried about their pitching. And even with Bellinger, too, I think you probably have to ask yourself a fair question. Have we seen the best of Cody Bellinger's career already? And if that's the case, what is this contract going to even look like in 3 years? I'm not so sure.
And then one of the big news items that we've had in the offseason would be the Skubal arbitration case and the difference that he is at and the difference that the Tigers are at. Where do you think that ends? And then is the inevitable going to happen and they have to trade Skubal before they offer him a massive contract?
Well, look, they don't have to trade Skubal. The Angels, Tom, did not trade Shohei Ohtani, So, anything goes. Anything can happen in this game. And the Angels right now, you look back and say, what could they have gotten for that 1 year of Ohtani? Probably more than the Tigers would have got from Skubal. But let's not get it twisted. The Tigers were going to offer him what they were going to offer him. They came up with a number, and I believe it was 14 or 15 million. And then the agent for Skubal said, hey, look, what's the record for the most ever in arbitration? It's Juan Soto. Okay, let's ask for 1 million more than that. See if we can break the record, Tom. That's the only reason why that happened. My guess is the arbiter kind of lands somewhere in between. I don't think he ends up getting the Soto deal. He'll probably come close. And in the end, I think the agent knows that as well. So The resolution for this, Tom, is that Tarek Skubal is going to get the most money ever for a pitcher through arbitration. And then if the Tigers are out of it, yeah, you could see a deal. But if they're in it, I think that they hold on to him and probably try to, run through the playoffs and hopefully for them get to an American League championship at least.
And then quickly, as we're coming up against a break soon, what are you looking forward to in the World Baseball Classic? Are there any young players who are relatively unknown, playing on countries that may not be familiar to people? Anything that you're keeping your eye on for that?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I just think that the magnitude of this one is going to be the biggest that we've ever seen. You mentioned Skubal and Skeens pitching for Team USA. They're all in. Everyone wants to play in this thing. And we remember just how popular it was toward the end and even in the championship. I could make the case. I mean, it's not the World Series, Tom. It's going to feel like it this March. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see it. I get to see it in person here in South Florida. So no players really in particular. I just think that the notion that everybody wants to be in it is something a little bit different than the last time they had the World Baseball Classic, and just very different than it was 8 to 10 years ago. Now, everybody wants to take home that trophy.
That is certainly exciting. That's coming up in March, obviously going on in the midst of spring training. But there's still going to be playing happening between now and then. There are a number of free agents that have yet to sign. Biggest name out there that you're looking to see where they land? Is it going to be a Zach Gallen?
Yeah, or Framber Valdez, one of those two. And Eugenio Suarez probably gets a nice one-year deal and AAV 15, 20 million, something like that. I don't know if any of these guys are going to get multi-year deals, even Valdez at this point. Yeah, I mean, look, Valdez historically probably the better pitcher than Gallen, but in a one-year situation, Gallen certainly could outperform him. So I think, Tom, those three are the next and last big names to sign. We'll probably get one in the next week or two. And then, boy, you know what? If you're these guys, you may just want to wait and see what happens in spring training at this point. It's not unprecedented to see players sign now in February and March.
We saw it with Blake Snell just a little while ago. That was Craig Mish. Thanks for stopping by. MLB News and Notes. We'll wrap things up with NHL and NBA after the break.
What is going on with this John Morant saga, right? John's on the block. John wants to be traded. But now John comes back and he denies all trade talks, and John says he has no desire to play elsewhere. So he shut it down. He's still viewed as a franchise centerpiece when on the floor. Memphis, they're better with him.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. I said, well, why? Wait a second here. He's head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sure, you could say the punt block is a key play in the game. It was.
It was.
But the signature play of last night's game is the John Elway-esque diving sideways into the end zone. There's a picture of it right there. To effectively win the national championship. That dude's a baller.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Hold on a second, though. You believe that Mike McDaniel is not head coach caliber?
No.
There's a lot of evidence that says Cliff Kingsbury is not
That's
either.
fine that you believe that. But here's the thing.
There's more. Hold on a second.
Hang on, okay.
Mike McDaniel has a better resume than Cliff Kingsbury.
He does on paper, but he's not a locker room guy.
Well, is Cliff?
GameTime Decisions, only on SportsGrid.
We're back right here on Sports Grid, Game Time Decisions. Thanks to Craig Mish for stopping by, talking plenty of MLB news and notes. Final segment of the show, I'll be handing things off for in-game live with Scott and Gabe. They'll, of course, take you through all the action that's going on, all of the action across NBA, NHL. They'll dive into some college basketball. They'll touch on the upcoming NFL games as well. Let's run through the scoreboard, see how some of these bets are doing. Blackhawks and Hurricanes are tied in the NHL 1-1, first intermission there. Sabres, Canadians, it is 2-0. Sabres over the Canadians. I said this game over 6.5 was my favorite NHL bet of the night. The Bruins are up 3-0 over the Vegas Golden Knights. As I mentioned that, I certainly like the Bruins in this matchup. I didn't actually bet them, but I certainly like them as this was a bit of a look-ahead spot for the Vegas Golden Knights, knowing that they are playing at the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow night. The return of Mitch Marner to the Maple Leafs was certainly a weird spot. Bruins are up 3-0, and then the Blue Jackets are up 1-0 over the Dallas Stars. So Sabres, Canadians still trending over 6.5. As we turn to the NBA, we have 4 games underway. Warriors Mavericks just got underway. Mavs out to a 14-11 lead there. The Hornets whopping the Magic right now. Hornets up 54-30 over the Magic. Hornets out to a live 13.5 point favorite. They are up by 24, but they are only laying 13.5 in the live market. Houston taking on the 76ers, 52-50 for the Rockets over the 76ers. That game closed at 2.5, wherever it might have been. It's at a 2-point spread right now. And then we see the Nuggets up 43-36 over the Wizards. As I said, coming into this, my favorite NBA bet for tonight was Peyton Watson on the Nuggets over 26.5 PRA, points, rebounds, assists combined. So far, approaching halftime, there's about 3 minutes left in the second quarter. He's got 13 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds. He's up to 20, and we're approaching halftime. He needs to go over 26.5. A great, great spot so far. He's 3 of 6 from the field, 3 of 4 from downtown. Listen, I said he wasn't the highest volume 3-point shooter. Taking 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 per game, but he was hitting them at a 40% clip. So, when he's hot, he's hot. And then on top of this, he's going up against the Wizards, who come in right now. They are the second worst team in the league when it comes to NBA defensive efficiency. And we had the Nuggets coming off of, 2 losses, and they really needed to get things going in the right direction. So it was, I'm not going to say the perfect storm, but 26.5 PRA, knowing that he's at 20 right now, is certainly a great spot. We have more NBA, more NHL coming up. We know that Keontae George did get ruled in for the Jazz. Keep that in mind. Mark Zinno, one of our guests from earlier, he mentioned that he liked that game going over. We're still waiting on the Kawhi news for the Clippers. Lakers at the Clippers. That's still a 1-point spread. There's a 222.5 total. So plenty of time between now and then, the 10-10 tip there. We also have Heat Trailblazers. Didn't really touch on that game. There's a 3.5-point spread, 235.5 total in that one, as the Trailblazers are laying the 3.5 at home to the visiting Heat. As for the late night NHL action, I mentioned the Panthers, Jets. We went over Senators, Predators. Don't really like those games too much. I'm looking to back Edmonton in some capacity. Now, I will say there has been some significant line movement in this game. When the show opened, the Oilers were up at minus 178 favorites, minus 178. I saw one book at minus 182. The Oilers are now down to minus 154. And this game starts at 9:10 Eastern, so just over an hour. They're down to minus 154. The total is still 6.5 going up against the Penguins. The Oilers are coming off a bit of a tough loss the other night going up against the New Jersey Devils. So I will be looking to back the Oilers. I did mention their 60-minute money line at minus 105. That money line is going to be even better. The 60-minute money line, I should say, will be even better. Now they're down to minus 154. We also have Red Wings visiting the Wild on this, the last game of tonight's slate. Didn't really mention that one either. The Wild are a solid team. The Red Wings are a solid team. Frankly, I'm not sure why the Red Wings are that much of an underdog. I expect this game to be a little bit closer. I think the Wild are a very good team. I just don't think they should be minus 160. If you told me they were minus 130, I think that's where things should really be. So point being, I like the Red Wings at that price. I don't like the Wild at that price. If you get the Wild in-game, closer even money, I would certainly look there. That does it for me today, filling in for Kevin Walsh right here, Game Time Decisions. Of course, you can catch me all across the SportsGrid network. Good luck with your bets. Let's get some scoring in Habs Buffalo, and I'm turning it over to Gabe and Scott for In-Game Live.